Hello and thank you for joining us. My name is Annette Wandera, a news anchor and reporter with KTN News from the Standard Media Group in Kenya. At this moment, we're going to have a conversation on the gendered century. What are the challenges and opportunities? The 21st century has seen a lot of agitation for gender equality. How far have we come? Where is the missing link? What are we doing wrong? And to help me just dissect some of these issues, Donaldson is the County Director, Educate Rwanda, from, of course, here in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having
And,
me.
of course, we also have Rachel Uwase, who's the Humanitarian and Negotiation Officer with the International Committee of the Red Cross Rwanda. Ladies, a pleasure to have you here today. Maybe we can just start with how the journey has been like for women, especially in this particular century. We seem to have made a lot of effort or a lot of strides, but we are not yet there. What do you think? What do you think about how the journey has been for us to where we are now?
Well, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head that we have made a lot of progress. I mean, globally, we look at things like women getting the right to vote in different countries, looking at even Saudi Arabia, women being able to drive for the first time. We look at things such as increased rates of education for girls and even at the tertiary level for women as well. More women in positions of leadership, at the highest levels of political leadership, even being heads of state. So we have seen some amount of progress. However, we know that there are still some disparities that we're all trying to address in our various fields of work. So we still see, at least in Rwanda and many other countries across the world, men having more university degrees than women, men making more money than women even for the same job. So we still see that there is some room there for us to continue to make progress despite the progress that has been made.
SDG 5 is on gender equality, and we note that we cannot achieve a number of goals if we are unable to achieve gender equality. From where you sit and the kind of work you do, Rachel, do you see as we are on the right trajectory with this? Are we onto something?
We are on the right trajectory on this, but the reality, the culture and everything is catching up so fast. It's catching up so fast in a way that we've achieved so many things, but looking back, for example, we have our cultures that sometimes you cannot address culture. It's an issue that you can just change overnight. And it's actually catching up with us because in the society where we live, especially in Rwanda, we still have few things into our culture that do not allow women to go forward for those positions. For example, what she said in the education sector, we still have more men into sciences. We still have more men doing most of scientific jobs because women feel like they're not entitled, because when you're a woman and they tell you can't go into a lab because you have so many things to burn, you'll burn your fingers and everything and you'll not look pretty anymore. So we still have those patriarchal culture catching up with us currently, and then it's something that we did not prepare before. And one of those, so the education part, yes, we have the right to education, yes, we have all the accesses, policies in place to access education easily, but we didn't tackle the inner part, we didn't tackle the mental issues regarding those education sectors, and I think it's one of the challenges that we are facing currently.
This is coming at a time when, and it's interesting that we are doing this in Kigali, where Rwanda is celebrating 25 years. It was Liberation Day today. We are looking at the humanitarian situation, not just here in Rwanda, but across the world, because we are aware that when there's conflict, the woman is the greatest victim. You've worked with these people. How is it for them, especially even those in refugee camps? What opportunities are there for them? Are we opening up a space for this group of women?
How I see that in the humanitarian sector, yes, they're opening up space and giving them a platform where they can talk, but the consequences of war and consequences of conflicts affect women more than they affect men. Some of these women get raped and they get pregnant and have kids in those wars. Some of these women had to assume responsibility at a very young age, hence they didn't go for education, they didn't go to schools, and they don't see a need to go to school because they're like, if I survived in 10 years of jail and camp and everything, why do I need school for? And hence they will never take their kids, who are little girls as well, to go to school. They'll not encourage them because they feel like it's not necessary. And again, apart from that as well, whatever comes with the trauma and post-traumatic effects of war and conflict, it affects actually women more than it affects men. Because what they see in war, you have kids that you are breastfeeding, you have someone at your back, you're running south and forth with those kids, you cannot feed them, and you actually feel sorry, the emotional part of women as well. It catches up to a point where even though there are those opportunities for you in refugee camp in Rwanda, for example, they have access to education. There are schools, but how many women go there? Not because they can't access them, but because they're like, why would I go there? So they prefer and choose the shortest path, which is marriage, which is I'm going to get this man who will provide for my family, rather than me going into a school where I'll spend ages and years not doing anything, sitting on a seat, because there's no one to show them that whatever happened to you is okay. There is no one to reintegrate them into the society and actually deal with those mental health issues. We don't have many of those. So to some point, it's actually affecting them really a lot, and it's making them not accessing education, hence creating a very low self-esteem, and that's why we don't have so many women into high leadership positions, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on physically, there's a lot going on with all the responsibilities they have to carry, there's a lot going on with what they went through, there's a lot on their plate that to some point, education, to some point, whatever is happening in life, it's not a priority to this extent, so it makes it hard for them.
Donaldson, you work majorly with the education sector here in Rwanda. Talk about giving them new skills, ensuring that at the end of the day they got quality education that will leapfrog them or catapult them to the next stage of their life. But when we get women who are from very disadvantaged backgrounds, like what Rachel is talking about, I mean, how do we then ensure that we integrate them and give them equal chances as far as education and access is concerned?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really tough question, and one that, I don't want to put any more pressure on teachers because they're already so overburdened. I think we all know that. Many teachers, they have even too many students in their classroom to really give the kind of individualized attention that we probably all believe students deserve. And yet, when you talk about students coming from a disadvantaged background, and girls in particular, it does take those extra steps coming from teachers, from maybe the school nurse or matron, from the director of studies. We need that entire school ecosystem to really step in to provide a bit more support for students like that. So we think of in the cases with maybe a student who's living in a refugee camp, for example, they're often very isolated from urban areas. So their access to the best jobs and even to transportation can be very much a challenge, right? So it does require, if someone wants to get an internship, for example, it's very hard even for the most determined young woman to make that happen for herself if she is in a camp 3 hours up on a road where a bus only runs once per day, right? It does take the whole community to lean in to provide extra support for her to be able to really get towards her goals. So I think in terms of those extra steps are needed, and we have seen in Rwanda there are quite a few private sector as well as nonprofit organizations that are stepping in to provide training inside the camps, trying to improve the level of entrepreneurship inside the camps as well, because we need to remember that we do have camps at this point that have 15,000 up to 20,000 people, and so they are little cities in and of themselves, little towns, and so I think there is more and more happening, but we just want to accelerate it because the need continues to be great.
But when we talk about the disadvantaged women, we also have those from the side of the social class, those who've gone to school, they've gotten the best education, they have good jobs. But society still views them as, no, that woman is too much. She's too much for a woman. I mean, are these things you've experienced in your space? Are these things you've seen?
It's certainly something I've talked to students about and something that they have raised as a concern. So some of them, as much as they are proud of themselves, they're excited about the potential and possibilities that a great education has provided for them. There's still that bit of a concern, right? Because when a young woman thinks of success for herself, very often she does include marriage as a part of that package. And so some of these, young women have said to me, I'm a little concerned about what's going to happen, if I graduate next year and I get to be, a bank manager, or I'm going to be making 500,000 francs per month or 800,000 francs, and I know my older brother doesn't make that much. His friends don't make that much. I'm going to have a problem dating, and that's a real problem for them. And I don't know the best solution because it's a real challenge, I think. And I think you talked about the culture needing to catch up a bit, and I think that's globally, not just here. And so this, you know, we're in that period of tension, and I think this generation is working through that tension, and maybe 20 years from now we look back and say, okay, what did we do right and what did we do wrong? I don't think there's like a quick answer to address that challenge of the balance of the professional and personal aspirations.
Richard, what do you think?
Well, it's one of the issues that actually, as she said, it's being faced globally because we are empowering women with different policies, different measures being taken care of. But is the society ready to accept empowered women? Because again, you become a director of something and you have 10 years of experience and, well, no one wants you because like, no, everyone think, as you said, everyone think you're too much. Everyone think you're not a woman anymore because somehow women's rights have been so-called gender's right. We no longer consider women as a human who deserves things. We see them as women. All the rights have been gendered. And then it makes it hard for women who are actually empowered, as you say on the other side, who are empowered to enjoy the rights. Because now you have been empowered. That was the purpose before, but now you're stuck. You're like, how do I behave? How do I act? Now I'm empowered, what do I do with this empowerment? And then sometimes for you to be able to be accepted in the society, you have to step a little bit back. You tone whatever you have down. You're a director, but you don't want people to know that you're a director. You're like, yeah, you know I'm a director, but you know there's a CEO. Well, you're a director, yeah? You need to accept that you're a director. But then you don't want people to see that you're a director. So you're just like, I'm a director, but there's a CEO, yeah, there's another director. So it actually makes it hard. The society is not ready for empowered women, but you're still empowering women.
Then amidst all this, what are some of the opportunities that we might just explore? And, you know, while you're giving that answer, because I believe we don't have much time, do we need to rethink or reimagine our strategies towards, you know, trying to achieve gender equality? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it has to be an iterative process. We don't have the magic solution yet for really driving us towards gender equality as a society because culture continues to change. Culture is dynamic, right? So even as we're talking about gender, male and female, the world's perception of sexuality is also changing. So now we have to start thinking about, okay, how do we repackage what we're teaching to catch up with this? How do we change our curricula in schools to address the things that are changing within the culture? So I think it has to be iterative, and I think we have to accept that this is an ongoing process, and we are all learning as we go throughout this. I think we also have to make sure that we look at all our initiatives as long-term. And I know for those of us working in the development space, that can be a challenge because we have these budgets and these 5-year plans and all of that. But the reality is, if we're shifting a culture and society, this is a 20-year, 50-year, 100-year journey. So I think, I don't know the specific strategies necessarily that we can talk about in our remaining time. But I will say, I think we need to start challenging ourselves a bit more to think about, what do I want the world to look like 100 years from now? And is the thing I'm doing helping me to get towards that versus some of these quick fix solutions and these little minor fights that we get into without looking at the long picture.
Quite a long term. 100 years is quite a long term. But it could be the way to go. Rachel?
I personally think that we actually have to change the focus. By changing the focus, I mean sometimes in these all institutions where we work, we focus more on women and we forget awareness of men. When it comes to gender. Now, the more you focus on women, as I said, women are empowered, women are ready, but are men ready to receive the empowered women? It makes it hard. And then by the time you go to talk to men, because you have a very short period, you've spent 10 years empowering women, but you're now only spending a month sensitizing men, which will not make sense because they'll have all the comeback. And remember, somehow society is shaped in a way that women has to make their way through acceptance. Men are already accepted. So I think if we change a little bit, as she said, sexuality is coming in and there's so many things. We should a little bit change the focus and make it a thing that is more global. Women are not an issue. Gender is not an issue. How do we perceive what we want to achieve? It's just that people are left behind and we are trying to bring them forward. And it's not like we are a problem or an question that we are trying to solve. Women are not a problem to be solved. They are just human who has to enjoy their right. Now I think it's just like changing that focus of women are a problem we are trying to solve into the society on women have the right that they should be enjoying in the society. I guess that will be what I think should be
Definitely
a
a take home that gender equality is not a women issue. We need to take men along with us as we seek to achieve this. Donaldson, Country Director, Educate Rwanda, thank you very much for being with us, as well as Rachel Uwase, Humanitarian and Negotiation Officer with the International Committee of the Red Cross Rwanda. Ladies, this has been good. Thank you for joining us. My name is Wandera. Enjoy your time.